One.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Future Talks. I'm your host, Michael Matsuda, the superintendent of the Anaheim Union High School District. And as our 8,000 plus listeners know, this show is dedicated to the future of education, not just for Orange County, but for the entire country. And we are very, very lucky today to have a very inspirational leader in Orange County, Dr. Stefan Bean, superintendent of the entire county. Dr. Bean, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to give just a little thumbnail of who our special guest is. He's been an educator for the past 25 years, serving Southern California communities and students as a teacher, principal, and school administrator. And in June 2024, the Orange County Board of Education unanimously appointed Dr. Bean as Orange County's 12th superintendent of schools, and this position dates back to 1889. Dr. Bean is a graduate of USC. He also has a master's from Loyola and a doctorate in education from Cal State University, Fullerton. Dr. Bean also grew up, I'm going to let him tell his story in a second, but he was an English learner and a student with a disability, which has deeply influenced his philosophy toward all students. But I just want to end with this. This is an amazing quote, Dr. Bean, that you said. I want our students across Orange County to know that I've got their backs no matter what, and that they should use me as an example. No matter what they're going through, no matter what challenges they may face, whether they have a disability, a speech impediment, whether they speak English as a second language, or whether they're experiencing trauma. I want them to know that I'm there and I'm going to protect them and help them throughout our country. What an amazing quote, Dr. Bean. Let's start right off and let's share your amazing story.
I appreciate that, Mike. First of all, the opportunity to come and speak in front of your audience, just as an educator to educator, it's you're inspiring. All the conversations I've had with you as well. So I love it when there are like-minded individuals in education that really put students first. And I know that about you, Mike, and your amazing district. So if I could start, yeah, you know what, many people ask me why I'm in education. And to answer that, I really have to reflect back to my beginnings, right? Everybody has this story. My origin story is basically started in Vietnam. I was an orphan at the age of 2, abandoned on the streets of Saigon because I had polio. And so an orphanage brought me in and took care of me for a couple years. Polio left me paralyzed from the waist down. So I often, just to get around, I dragged around the floor or tried to use leg braces. In 1975, I was blessed to be airlifted from Vietnam to the United States as a part of Operation Baby Lift. And what that operation was to take the Vietnamese refugees, over 2,000 of them, and fly them out of Vietnam or Saigon to be placed in foster homes or to be adopted literally days before Saigon was to fall. And so that's how it started. So, coming into my foster home, it was the Beans, and they were able to adopt me about 5 years later. But what I remember most about my adopted parents is Judy had a heart for the most vulnerable in the community. She and my dad took in over 150 foster kids into their home, many of them with disabilities like mine. Many of them were abused. And so they ultimately, out of the 150 foster kids, they adopted 10 of us, including myself. So I have, and then they have 2 of their own. So there's 12 siblings in the household, and many of them, I have 3 Black sisters, 1 with cerebral palsy. I have a set of Latino brothers who are autistic. And so I grew up in this very diverse family where my mom instilled in us this heart and compassion for the most vulnerable in our community. And then my dad was an educator. He was a teacher. And he said to me, Stefan, if you're going to overcome, then you really have to prioritize sharpening your mind through education. And he said, that's going to get you far. And so those two things become the driving force for the reason why I do this work. And that is on behalf of the most vulnerable students in our community, on behalf of the 450,000 students, we do this work and we put students first. I think, Mike, we lost, or I couldn't hear you there.
Oh, sorry. That's an incredible story. Your parents must just be so proud of you, Dr. Bean. Let's talk a little bit about this 450,000 students that you help oversee. Could you explain the relationship between county superintendent and the districts and the district superintendents?
Yeah, that's a great. So just yesterday, actually, I had some visitors from Mexico, educators, and I explained to them that the educational system in California, we have the California Department of Education, alongside with the State Board of Education. They work to set policies and educational policies and laws called Ed Code. And then what happens is those particular Ed codes and laws and even money get channeled then to the county. So we have 58 counties across California. Of those 58 counties, 54 counties are ran by county superintendents that are elected, and then 4 are ran by county superintendents that are appointed. So in Orange County, we're the 3rd largest county in California. So I'm blessed to be the county superintendent of schools, appointed just last year. And our county Office of Education, basically what we do is we provide support and services to our 28 districts, actually to all of our LEAs. LEAs include, of course, the 28 districts, through lots of administrative services, fiscal services, trainings, and things like that. We also are we are responsible to support certainly districts in any kind of academic needs, fiscal needs, and things like that. So we do a lot of training. And then we also directly serve the most vulnerable in our county. So we have incarcerated youth that we teach. We have probation. We have students with disabilities. The students that need an alternative setting for education, the county also provides services for that. And so as the county superintendent of schools, I oversee all of that and that work in the county.
Yeah, what a huge responsibility. Because I thought we were big at 25,000 students. So yeah, you guys, you have to oversee the whole county. Let me ask you this, because one of the big challenges in Orange County is that it's expensive for young couples. So
Yes.
that has contributed to these declining enrollment in virtually all 28 districts. I think 1 or 2 are still at a positive. But what can we do to help stem the tide of declining enrollment? Because I know there are complex issues around this.
Yeah, there's complex issues certainly around this, and many of these issues would involve other types of agencies, right? So believe it or not, there are families that want to remain in Anaheim, Santa Ana, but the cost of living is too expensive because there's a shortage of housing. So one of the things that we're doing at the County Office of Education is we're partnering and working with Home Builders Association to begin lobbying to the state of California to make pathways that are much easier to build new homes in California. There's lots of red tape, lots of regulations that home builders in Southern California. In fact, I met with the president the other day and he said, look, Dr. Bean, there's places for us to build. We're ready to build. We can build you a house overnight. But the problem is getting through all of the red tape to do that. And so if we can build more homes, the prices of homes would go down and more people would be able to live in our cities. And hopefully that would stem the tide, certainly, right? But there's other things that we can do. If we can spotlight districts like Anaheim Union, where you are so innovative in your practices and provide community schools, right? And we know community schools is wraparound services for our students right on campus. You also provide innovative ways to engage students in artificial intelligence or career technical education. So if we can highlight and spotlight districts like yours, Mike, students and families would want to stay and remain as a part of the public education system.
Yeah, so you had mentioned two big things. I mean, artificial intelligence and workforce pathways. Why, we're, and I know you and I are on the same page in terms of how quickly artificial intelligence is transforming the whole workscape, right? And even entire sectors that could be swept away in terms of jobs. Why aren't we seeing more traction in the K-12 space with artificial intelligence?
Well, I think part of it is and you've alluded to this many times. Part of this is that I think educators, we don't know what we don't know yet about artificial intelligence. We don't know if it's, how, well, let me rephrase this. It is one of our initiatives at the Orange County Department of Education is to support our 28 districts and other LEAs around how do we ethically integrate artificial intelligence in the educational setting. How do we use AI to actually help with innovation in learning environments and students' experiences? And then how do we use AI to develop this workforce preparedness and industry relevance? So if we can use AI in those three ways responsibly, then I think you're going to have more and more educators, more districts like you that actually say, look, AI is just a tool to help us, to help prepare our students, right, for the workforce development, for higher education. It's not to replace our teachers, and it's certainly not to replace the way we learn, but it's just a tool in the toolkit to help us with learning.
So, Orange County prides itself as an economic engine, and yet it just seems to be disconnected from the strong argument you just made for artificial intelligence. And as we both know, the president recently put out an executive order, which I agree with. We support framing artificial intelligence as a national security issue for us to keep up with our foreign enemies out there that are moving ahead. Again, Dr. Bean, why don't we see more movement in this space? Because I am very frustrated with this, and I think this is a national security issue, and it's an economic engine issue as well for Orange County.
Well, I think part of the issue is that when we talk about ethical integration, right? When we talk about AI, we talk about ethical integration as well as responsible. But part of this whole ethical integration is, and you've actually helped us quite well in your counsel of us in this work, is we have to actually help people to understand and be aware of what AI does. We have to help students to be literate with AI. And then we as leaders have to have what we call a sense of AI wisdom, right? In other words, like training programs that equip educators with essential AI competencies, right? So it's the training that must occur first. Then we can help students to become literate in AI, and then we can make everybody aware of, in whether it's through public forums or resources or different communication strategies, we can make people aware of how AI impacts education and society at large. And so we're only going to get that traction when the business sector, the education sector, universities all have the same common language about AI. And so we're trying to do that at a county level with supports with districts like yourself to use common language. And I'm on the board for Orange County Business Council, and I push it hard. I tell them how AI is used in education, and that begins to help the business industry understand that students don't use AI to write papers, but they use it as a tool to be analytical in the way they approach real world problems.
So going back to this challenge of declining enrollment, because we're going to see school closures, right?
Yeah.
And really, and prime property opening up. Is the county involved in terms of helping districts make informed decisions about the use of that property, given that 1 in 5 jobs in Orange County are healthcare related? Given what you just said about AI and the importance of that for organizations like the Orange County Business Council and CLAOC, that's an area that we're dealing with. We have 19.5 acres that we're looking at. Is there talk about, like, maybe coming together around the OCDE in terms of giving district support on and advice, and maybe giving us options about use of the land?
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up because we've actually been talking about that in the last several months in my leadership team, where there is, if districts enrollment continues to decline, they're going to be faced with, what do we do with these facilities? And we want to at least be able to sit down with our superintendents and say, well, here certainly are some options. And you just alluded to this, Mike. Here are some options. Here is the ed code. Here are the laws around what you can do with school property. I think what it's going to take, though, it's going to take actual conversations with the county team and district teams on how that's done. Because, we just got news that one district would like to be able to sell their school to a city, right? And we want to be able to help that district navigate that well with the school board of education. Because a lot of times the school boards of education, state board of education, state board of education will reside on what a district can and cannot do with a particular piece of property, because that property is first meant for educational purposes. So yes, we have to have open dialogue with district superintendents on these issues that they could be facing a year or two, quite frankly, with a decline in enrollment.
The federal government is challenging the old way of doing schools, right? By making severe cuts, and in our district, it could amount to over 10% of our budget, 45 million, and impacting some of the very students that are the most marginalized and needy.
Yeah.
What are our options if this were to come to fruition?
Well, I know that I definitely don't want to get political here, but I will say this, is that a lot of things that the administration is doing is through executive orders, which is not law, right? So much of the money, so we've done analysis on this at the county. Much of the money that comes from the federal government to local education agencies will continue to be diverted to the local education agencies through another means if they in fact are successful with dismantling the Department of Education. So I believe that the money will still be there, but it may come from another department at the federal level. With that being said, we want to work with districts to lobby at a national level to say, you can't take away these programs because it provides for the most vulnerable. If you take away Title I, now we're talking about low income. Title III, we're talking about English learners. That is unacceptable. The biggest, and the money that they must continue to provide support with is for students with disabilities, right? So IDEA in the 70s is underfunded. So the fact that it's underfunded, we can't be taking away any more money away from special education. And so I want you to know, and other superintendents to know, in Orange County, we still will fight and advocate for the money that protects our most vulnerable in our community. Given that I was one of them, I empathize, and I want to continue supporting that.
That's awesome. Not surprised to hear that. And in the few minutes we have left, Dr. Bean, what are some of your goals looking forward for the county?
Yeah, the county has what's called a 531 strategic plan. And in that 531 strategic plan, if you look at it as a triangle on the bottom, it's 5 initiatives that we do at the county level. It's initiatives for us internally as a team. And that's one is change the way that we lead. We want to lead from the heart. So we want to foster emotional intelligent leadership, because when we lead well, what happens is that we serve the people that serve our students. So in essence, the county serves you, Mike, and your district because you serve the students. So when we serve you well, when we serve our superintendents well, then our superintendents will be able to serve their students better. So fostering emotional intelligent leadership is one of our initiatives. A couple others that I just want to highlight, I won't go through them all, but is this integrating our AI, artificial intelligence, responsibly and ethically, and then enhancing career technical education for the most vulnerable. I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm sure you know this, but the only less than 40% of our English learners have access to CTE courses in high school. A low 40% of students with special education have access to CTE in high school compared to their counterparts. Homeless and foster youth is barely in the 30% of those students have access to CTE. So we want to make one of our initiatives is to enhance CTE work across the county and offering more CTE and workforce planning for the most vulnerable. So those are a few of the initiatives, but all that to also say that we want to do this well. We have what's called 3 support objectives. And one of the support objectives that I'll mention is really offering the best service and support we can to our LEAs, local education agencies, in whatever way that they need, because we know at the end of the day, you are the ones on the front line supporting our students. So if we can support you well, then you'll be able to support them.
Wow. Really appreciate your time, Dr. Bean. Went by fast. I said it would go by fast.
It did.
I think we covered a lot, and on behalf of all of our listeners in our entire district of 25,000 students and their families, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Humbled. Thank you.